The car engine cut through the celebration like a knife. Children stopped dancing. Drummers froze mid-beat. And there, stepping out of that dusty vehicle, was the face every person in Odupe village thought they'd never see again. Chisom had returned, but the woman rushing toward him wasn't running with joy. Ijeoma's face was white with terror. In her arms was a baby that couldn't possibly be his. Behind her stood his own brother Obinna, and the look in Obinna's eyes said everything. This is the story of how love, desperation, and tradition collided in the most devastating way possible. And before you judge anyone in this story, you need to understand how it all began. It started 5 years earlier in the same village of Odupe, where the morning sun painted everything gold and the sound of children's laughter mixed with roosters crowing. This was a place where everyone knew everyone, where secrets were supposed to be impossible, and where marriage was forever. Ijeoma was 22 and beautiful in the way that made old women smile and young men stumble over their words. When Chisom asked her father for her hand, the whole village celebrated. Here was a match made by the gods themselves. Chisom was everything a woman could want. Strong, hardworking, with dreams bigger than the village could contain. He spoke of cities across the ocean, of opportunities that would make them rich beyond imagination. On their wedding day, as the drums pounded and the dancers spun, Ijoma felt like the luckiest woman alive. I'll send for you, Chisom promised on their last night together. 1 year, maybe two. Then we'll build a house that makes the chief jealous. She believed him. How could she not? The first year passed like a slow fever. Ijoma wrote letters every week, pouring her heart onto paper that would travel thousands of miles. She told him about the harvest, about her mother's cough that wouldn't go away, about how she saved every penny he sent. His replies came sporadically. Short notes about how hard he was working, how expensive everything was, how soon wasn't soon enough. By the second year, the letters stopped coming altogether. By the third year, people stopped asking about Chisom. By the fourth year, they stopped mentioning his name at all. Ijoma became a ghost in her own life. She moved through the village like a woman underwater, helping her aging parents, tending their small shop, pretending she didn't hear the whispers. The other women her age were raising children, building lives. She was suspended in time, waiting for a man who might as well have died. That's when Obinna started showing up. Chisom's younger brother had always been different. Where Chisom was bold and ambitious, Obinna was gentle and thoughtful. Where Chisom looked to distant horizons, Obinna saw the beauty in everyday moments. He'd been quietly in love with Ijoma since they were teenagers, but he'd never said a word. His brother saw her first. It started innocently. A bag of rice when her family ran short, help fixing the roof when the rains came early. Small kindnesses that meant everything to a woman who felt forgotten by the world. You don't have to do this, she told him one evening as he hammered loose boards. I know, he said simply, but I want to. The village watched this develop with fascination and concern. Here was a woman legally married, but practically abandoned, and here was a man whose love was obvious to everyone. What was the right thing to do? What was the traditional thing to do? What was the human thing to do? Months passed. Obina's visits became daily. Ijoma found herself looking forward to his gentle smile, his quiet strength. He never pushed, never demanded. He just existed in her life like sunshine after years of rain. The night everything changed, Ijeoma had been crying again. Another woman from her wedding party had given birth to her third child, and the loneliness was suffocating. Obinna found her by the village well, and for the first time, she didn't try to hide her tears. I can't live like this anymore, she whispered. I'm 26 years old and I feel like I'm dying. Then don't, he said. And the way he said it made her look up. What are you saying? I'm saying that life is for the living. I'm saying that my brother made his choice when he stopped writing. I'm saying that I love you, and if you'll have me, I'll never make you cry again. 3 months later, in a quiet ceremony with only Obinna's closest friend as witness, they were married. Not in the eyes of the village, not in the eyes of tradition, but in the eyes of two people who refused to let life pass them by. For 8 months, they lived in secret happiness. Ijeoma bloomed like a flower finally given water. She laughed again, sang again, planned for the future again. When she became pregnant, their joy was complete but complicated. This child would force their secret into the open. They decided to present it as a miracle. Chisom had returned briefly, they would say. It happened so quickly he had to leave again for work. The village wanted to believe good news, so they did. The naming ceremony was perfect. The whole village gathered to celebrate new life. The drummers played it, the women danced, children ran everywhere. Ijoma held her son and felt complete for the first time in years. That's when the car pulled up. The silence that followed was deafening. Chisom stepped out, looking around with confusion. He'd put on weight, his clothes were expensive. His smile was bright with the confidence of a man returning home, successful. Then he saw Ijoma. Then he saw the baby. Then he saw his brother. The pieces clicked together with the sound of breaking glass. What is this? His voice carried across the silent gathering. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The celebration had become a funeral. Chisom walked toward them like a man in a trance. His eyes went from Ijoma to the baby to Obinna and back again. When the truth hit him fully, his knees nearly buckled. How long? He whispered. Ijoma couldn't speak. Obinna stepped forward. Brother, let me explain. How long? The shout sent children running to their mothers. 8 months, Obinna said quietly. The math was simple. Chisom had been gone for 4 years. The betrayal wasn't just clear, it was public. In front of the entire village, in front of the elders, in front of the children who would grow up telling this story. What happened next would be talked about for generations. Chisom didn't rage, he didn't fight, he didn't scream. He stood there for a long moment looking at the three people who had destroyed his world, and then he began to laugh. Not joyful laughter, the sound of a man's sanity cracking. 4 years, he said to no one in particular. 4 years I worked 18-hour days. 4 years I saved every penny. 4 years I dreamed of coming home to my wife. He looked directly at Ijeoma. My wife. The village elders, led by the ancient chief Okoro, finally stepped forward. This was their jurisdiction now. This was tradition versus reality, law versus love, right versus wrong. That night, under the great Iroko tree, where all village disputes were settled, the elders heard the full story. Ijoma spoke through tears about the years of silence, the crushing loneliness, the slow death of hope. Obinna spoke about love, about watching her suffer, about choosing life over tradition. Chisom spoke about sacrifice, about the woman he'd worked himself half to death to provide for, about coming home to find his family had replaced him. Chief Okoro, 90 years old and wise in the ways of human nature, listened to it all. When the testimonies ended, he spoke. This is a story with no innocent parties. Chisom, you abandoned your wife in all but name. A husband's duty is presence, not just provision. Obinna, you took what belonged to your brother, regardless of circumstances. Your love doesn't erase that betrayal. Ijoma, you were married in the eyes of the ancestors. Your loneliness doesn't change that bond. The judgment was swift and final. Chisom would take back his legal wife and accept the child as his own, or he would grant her a divorce and release her to his brother. But both brothers could not claim her. The village could not survive that kind of division. Obinna would leave Odupe forever if Chisom chose to reclaim his marriage. If Chisom chose divorce, Obinna could stay but would bear the shame of his actions for life. Ijoma would have no choice in the matter. The men would decide her fate. It was harsh. It was unfair. It was tradition. Chisom stood under that ancient tree, holding the power to destroy or redeem three lives. The village waited in complete silence. I choose, he said finally, to let them have each other. The words hit like thunder. But, he continued, I choose to remember that my brother betrayed me, and I choose to remember that my wife gave up on me, and I choose to never forgive either of them. He turned to address the village. I'm going back to America. I have a good life there now. A woman who waited for me to be ready. Future that doesn't include people who couldn't wait for years. His voice broke slightly. I hope it was worth it. Before anyone could respond, he walked away. By morning, he was gone. The divorce papers came 6 months later, along with photos from his wedding to an American woman. He looked happy, really happy. It was the cruelest kindness he could have given them. Obinna and Ijeoma were free to marry publicly now, but the joy was complicated by grief. They had gained each other, but lost a brother, a friend, a piece of their souls. Their love story became the village's cautionary tale. Years passed. They built a good life together, raised their son with love and wisdom, had two more children. But every celebration was touched by sadness. Every family gathering had an empty chair where Chisholm should have been. The village eventually healed around their story. New scandals replaced old ones. Children grew up knowing the tale but not feeling its sting. Life moved forward because life always does. But sometimes, when the wind was right and the evening was quiet, you could still feel the weight of that moment when three people's choices changed everything forever. This story has stayed with me because it shows how love and betrayal can exist in the same space, how people can be both victim and villain in their own lives, how the human heart can break and heal and break again, all while keeping time with the rhythm of ordinary days. In Odupe village, they still tell this story to young couples, not as a judgment, but as a reminder that marriage is more than a ceremony. Love is more than a feeling, and some choices, once made, echo through generations. If you want to hear more stories like this one, tales that reveal the complex truth of human nature, subscribe to our channel because the most powerful stories aren't the ones with simple heroes and villains. They're the ones that show us ourselves in all our beautiful, flawed, complicated humanity. Today, if you visit Odupe village, you'll find Ijeoma and Obinna still there, their hair grey now, their love tempered by time and consequence. Their children know they have an uncle in America they've never met. They know their family story is different from others, and sometimes, very rarely, a letter comes with an American postmark. Not for Ijoma or Obina, but for the village chief. A donation for the school or money for the clinic. No return address, no message. Just Chisholm's way of saying he remembers where he came from, even if he can never come home. Some love stories end with happily ever after. This one ends with carefully ever after. Because when you build happiness on someone else's heartbreak, you never forget the cost. And maybe that's the most honest kind of love story there is. What do you think? Was Ijoma right to move on after years of silence? Was Obina wrong to love his brother's wife? Was Chisom justified in his anger? Share your thoughts in the comments below. These are the questions that make us human.